Hello, good morning. It's my privilege to speak to you today for your thought of the day. I would like to talk to you about the success in failure. So the reason I've made this video is to share a few things that I have been making recently, and also that I think it's really good to sometimes fail, because sometimes you learn how to do something a little bit better by actually getting it wrong first time. So here I have a remote control car. I 3D printed this. It took about 60 hours, which is a long time, but the parts are all 3D printed here at home. The wheels I've bought, but everything else is made by me. So parts like this take about 10 hours, 11 hours to print, and that was this piece here. But I can tell you, the reason it's not on the car is it failed. So after about 10 hours it went wrong, so I had to start all over again. But it did mean that I learnt some new settings on the machine, and now I'm a better 3D printer now. Same for this part here. This part went on the back, and actually part of it went wrong again, so I had to restart. So I could have given up. I could have said, oh, do you know, I can't do this, it's too difficult. But I didn't. I kept on, I persevered, and I succeeded by failing, which is quite a funny thing when you think about it. But sometimes you've got to fail to succeed. So if you get something wrong, that's great, because actually you've learned something. Somebody once said to me, experience is what we call our mistakes. And I'm a great believer in that. Experience is what we call our mistakes. So let's look at some other examples. So how many of you have seen a Walt Disney film? I'm sure many of you. But Walt Disney, originally, he was fired by his newspaper editor because he said he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Imagine if he'd given up. He went on and he had many jobs after that, failed plenty of times, but eventually kept plugging away, and eventually he came up with a recipe for success. So Walt Disney, good example of somebody who tried and tried again. Thomas Edison, you might know Thomas Edison. So Thomas Edison, another famous inventor, I would say. He has not failed. When he gets something wrong, he says, oh, I've not failed. I've just found several ways or thousands of ways that don't work. So sometimes if it doesn't work, just say to yourself, oh, that's fine. I just found a way that it doesn't work. I'll try something else. Or I can't do that yet. So quite often I'll struggle with something and I'll say, oh, I can't do that yet, rather than I can't do that. I think that's a great way to be. So I'll just finish off with a couple of little stories for you. So how many of you have had one of these tasty things? This is a pavlova, and a pavlova is meringue, and it's plenty of fruit and cream, but it's closely related to this. So what is this? Well, this is the Eton mess. Now the story goes, or it's widely believed, that after a cricket game at Eton versus Harrow, they dropped the pavlova onto the floor, but they decided to pick it up off the floor, not sure about that part, pop it into bowls, and they ate it and they thought it was delicious. So I'm sure many of you have had an Eton mess, but maybe not so many of you have had a pavlova. So isn't that interesting how this has sort of taken over? But without this failure, without dropping the pavlova, the Eton mess wouldn't have been born. One more foodie one for you, the pineapple upside down cake. Now I don't know if this story is true, but I do quite like this story. So the story goes that a lady followed the recipe wrong. She got it backwards, and she ended up putting the fruit in first and then the cake mix on top, cooked it, flipped it over. Her friends came round and said, this is delicious, but what is it? And she said it's a pineapple cake, and they sort of laughed at her, and she realised she got the recipe backwards. But if she hadn't failed or made a mistake, she wouldn't have come up with this lovely recipe. So pineapple upside down cake, really good example of something that went wrong. So just to finish off, I have one last thing to say to you. So this thing here is a project I've been working on for a long time. This is my Nixie clock. Now a Nixie clock uses tubes with lots of numbers inside, and the idea is that I'm going to try and turn this into a working clock. The tubes are very old. They're from 1983 and they were made in Russia, so they're very old things. But I can tell you that it doesn't work at the minute. But I haven't failed. I've just simply found a way that it won't work yet. So I'm going to keep plugging away, and when I get it working, I'll show you. So I would encourage you to use this time that you have and make use of it. Try and find a project that you think or a new skill that you've been struggling with, practice and practice, and I bet you in weeks to come you'll be better at it. So I'm just going to finish with one last video for you. I have plenty of hobbies, and one of the hobbies that I like is remote control, hence the car. One of the other things that I like to do is fly around with my drone. So I take quite a few videos with my drone. So I just thought I'd finish off with a quick video from my drone for you. So enjoy the rest of your week and have a think about what new skill that you could learn or practice or improve while you have a little bit of time at home. So embrace your failures, folks, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.